This is Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth.
Welcome back, Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth. And we've really hit the economic issue pretty hard. But I also wanted to put into context the notion of a phony scandal at the IRS when you have one of the political appointees directly by President Obama involved and connected to the scandal of evaluating and holding up and delaying applications for 501c3 and 4 status from Tea Party groups and groups representing Israel as well. And you have the disparity, something at 286 versus 18 when it comes to conservative groups, as I've just mentioned, versus liberal groups. And is Heather ready? Oh, working on that. Okay. Now, the bottom line is that we don't want to draw conclusions that are not there, which is important. Just go where the evidence is. But remember, go back to the beginning when we were told this is a few rogue agents and it existed on both sides. And also then go back and look at the statements that were made. And just one suggestion. Look at lying by omission. It's something that has taken place. And that's why we have people taking the fifth. When you take the fifth in Washington, sometimes you get a really nice paid vacation if you're politically connected. That would be Lois Lerner. But I digress. I want to go to our guest, Heather MacDonald. She is a John M. Olin Fellow at the Manhattan Institute and contributing editor to the City Journal, She's written a number of books. The Burden of Bad Ideas, which is a collection of her essays from the City Journal, and her second book, Are Cops Racist? And she has been an outstanding resource, but also if you ever have an opportunity to read her work, she's a wonderful writer as well. Heather, welcome back. Great to be with you.
Thank you, Crane.
There is something I will play, and I recognize when I play this, it is something that you could say, well, this is a bit extreme of what's been said, but this is an MSNBC commentator talking about race and the Zimmerman verdict in the Trayvon Martin shooting trial. Here is that clip. Roll it.
High incarceration rates are just really just another example and symptom of institutional racism and white supremacy. You know, I think it's the reason you're seeing so many young black men in jail now is the confluence of, racist criminal justice system, racist law enforcement, racist education system, a racist healthcare system, and these things are racist and classist, and the two are intertwined. So I feel like the reason that you're seeing those high incarceration rates, besides the draconian drug laws, are just a confluence of the confluence of white supremacy, really.
That is Shaka King, director of the film Newlyweds, commenting on the criminal justice system in relation to the George Zimmerman verdict and trial. Now, Heather, we've heard a number of things about the verdict and what was said. You have written an article, The Post-Zimmerman Poison Pill, and many, even the president, have talked about the disproportionate amount of black men in prison. And my question to you is, do we have a racist justice system in America?
No, this is just absolute falsehood, and that Shaka's entire statement was paranoia and fantasy and a idée fixe that people are simply unwilling to let go. The Liberal Academy has been trying for decades to back up this assertion that the reason that blacks are disproportionately in prison is because of racism, whether it's in the police or district attorneys or judges or juries, and they come up short again and again. They cannot find the evidence. One study that the Justice Department did in 1974 found that blacks were actually less likely to be prosecuted following the commission of a felony and less likely to be found guilty than whites. Another major criminologist who liberal media go to all the time, Alfred Blumenstein, found that blacks are actually underrepresented in prison for homicide compared to their actual homicide commission rates. So we have a system that has come a long way since the time of Jim Crow, and the overwhelming reason, and again, I am quoting from some of the most liberal, if not utterly left-wing criminologists out there who have reluctantly come to the conclusion that the reason blacks are in prison, they're about 37% of the state prison population, which is where 88% of all prisoners in this country are housed. The reason that there's a disproportionate number of blacks in prison is because their crime rates are so disproportionate.
Okay, well, if that is the case, then what is causing the black community to engage in this behavior? And when I say that, understand that I talk about the idea of speaking to the black community as, in essence, being silly because we are created as individuals, and I would not like people to refer to the white community. If anybody's got up and claimed to speak for my race, I would say, David Duke, just go over to the stage of Jerry Springer with the guys with white sheets and who like to burn small teas, and stand with the people with sunglasses and berets and military fatigues, and you all can have a conversation on race. But if we are taking a claim in this, Heather, which is, okay, disproportionate amount of black men in prison, and you're saying it's not a racist criminal justice system, then what is causing this behavior?
Well, my primary cause, and liberals always have their root causes, which is inequality, racism, poverty, and my root cause would be family breakdown. You have nationwide a 73% out-of-wedlock black birth rate. In inner cities, it can be as high as 80, 82%. That is civilizational collapse. You cannot have a responsible... The chances of raising self-disciplined young men in particular in a culture without fathers, and where not only do boys grow up without their own father, but they grow up without the expectation that they are going to have to develop bourgeois habits of deferred gratification and responsibility in order to woo a woman to be their wife, that's a recipe for collapse. And you have kids now looking for male role models in gangs. This is not it's not an epidemic that is uniquely black. If you have whites are moving up in their out-of-wedlock birth rate, it's about 23, 25% now. I can guarantee you that if whites were to have a 73% out-of-wedlock birth rate, you'd see the identical set of problems. Hispanics are now 53%. Their crime rate is just half between whites and blacks. So unless we can get over the feminist taboo on saying that fathers and men are absolutely necessary to their children, I don't see that. Short of policing has been the one thing. I mean, New York City proactive policing has been the one thing that has really brought crime down. But short of using police officers, if we want to bring down the crime rate by just having people act more responsibly, the first thing you've got to do is knit the family back together again.
When we speak to the family, do we see the kids that are coming from these homes without a father, a present father, are they seeking that relationship, that connection? And are we seeing that in the increase in the amount of gangs that we are seeing across the country?
Definitely. And there's lots of, you have to always enter this caveat. Of course, there's lots of heroic single mothers that are doing their best, but men and women are different. And men bring different qualities to child rearing than women do on average. That's not to say that there are not highly disciplinarian, strict, authoritarian, suck-it-up mothers and extremely emotive and empathetic fathers. But on average, men and women and mothers and fathers bring different attributes. And besides that, having a single parent having to struggle with the enormous challenges of child rearing is just very hard. And you're handicapped. You've got half the resources of a two-parent home. So but unfortunately, it's become taboo to speak about men in a positive way. And I have to say this, with the rise of gay marriage, when you've got, by definition, an absent gamete donor, and let's say you've got two lesbians raising a child, you can't say to them, oh, they need their father. So it's becoming harder and harder to speak about the importance of a mother and a father, the biological parents. But I think that we are fooling ourselves if we think we can completely re-engineer family formation.
It's been harder and harder to speak the truth, and I can only imagine what you have to deal with in the reception of this music, or excuse me, the reception of this information and how you presented it. It is, it's incredible. And Daniel Patrick Moynihan dealt with it on a scale of bringing some of this information up. But Heather, we appreciate you doing it, and we appreciate your dedication to having work that has been verified and it's not going in with an agenda. Rather, it's going in with the agenda of truth. And I will say this, it is a privilege to interview you, as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Crane. I appreciate it being on.
Absolutely. Heather MacDonald, Manhattan Institute scholar and editor of the City Journal. AFR Talk.